We are the giant.
We have with us the co-producer of this film, Razan Galini, and also one of the subjects of this documentary, Mariam Al-Khawaja. And this movie, I guess, has mostly to do with what's been called the Arab Spring, the popular uprisings in many countries in the Middle East. I guess, Razan, we should go to you first because Greg Barker directed this movie, but you helped produce it. He took his cameras, and I guess you were there too.
Well, I heard from your producer that you took the cameras, and your parents did not know that you were doing it.
That's true. Yeah.
Get closer to real close to the mic. Yeah, get real close.
Yeah, that's actually true. Greg actually couldn't go anywhere except Libya, so everything else was me and Hamdi Muhammad, who is the DP. And we were
now, where are you living? Where do you live?
I live in Brooklyn, in New York.
Okay.
I was living in LA when we were making the film.
And your parents are from where?
Well, originally Palestinian, but they live in Fairfax, Virginia.
And were you born here?
I was born here.
Yeah. So you went over there without telling your parents?
No, I would call and be like, "Hi, Mom. I just want you to sit down. I'm in Bahrain. See you in a week. Bye."
I'm in Bahrain.
And then hang up.
That connection.
Yeah.
So you went over there and filmed. And did you film and meet Mariam and film her?
Well, Mariam actually had left Bahrain at that point because it was too dangerous for her to be there. Because she was very active at the Pearl Roundabout, which is sort of like the Tahrir Square of Bahrain at the time. So Mariam was the first person I contacted, and I called her after reading an article in, I think it was the Washington Post, and I was like, "Hey, can we talk?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then later it came out that she thought I was like a CIA agent, and I was like, "No, I'm not." So eventually I got to Bahrain and met up with Zainab, her sister, who's actually a very big part of the film.
Tell us your story then. You are from Bahrain, and it says here that your father is in prison there still?
Yes. I was actually born in Syria. Both my parents were activists in the 1970s, 1980s, and had to leave Bahrain because of security issues. And so we were refugees in Denmark, where I grew up until I was 14 years old, which is when we then moved back to Bahrain, and we lived there since then. And yeah, my dad has been a human rights defender for as long as I can remember, since he was almost 16, 17 years old. So he's been a pain in the neck for the regime for a very, very long time now. And that's why as soon as the crackdown started, he was one of the first people to get picked up by the government.
What's your father's occupation when he's not being a pain in the neck? Does he have an occupation? Is he a...
Yeah, so my father actually founded the Bahrain Center for Human Rights, which was founded in 2001 and continues to run. I actually am the acting president of it today, since our president, Nabil Rajab, is in prison as well. And he, after founding the Bahrain Center for Human Rights and running it for several years, he then went on to work for Frontline Defenders, which is a human rights organization based out of Ireland. So he's not only a human rights defender known to Bahrain, he actually was very active in documenting, supporting, and training human rights defenders everywhere in the world, but especially in the Middle East and North Africa region. And it's been very inspiring for me in my work now, meeting all these different defenders from all around the Middle East and North Africa who actually were either trained by my father or worked with him.
So to answer your question, Bill, he's now a professional pain in the ass.
Yes, that's his profession, being a pain in the ass.
Are you able to communicate with him at all in prison?
Now I am. When he was first arrested, he was subjected to enforced disappearance for about 2 months. Where he was severely tortured, as well as my uncle as well, who's my father's younger brother. But after that, and after he was sentenced to life imprisonment in a military trial, he was then allowed family visits and phone calls. But of course, as is the situation with everything else in Bahrain, it's always a political decision of whoever's in charge that day.
So that could change.
Yes, that could always change.
Can I ask you how old you are?
I'm 26 years old.
Does it, this is dangerous stuff to do, and I guess you, in a certain way, you've never known anything else. You grew up in this family doing this. Do you ever have any fun?
Well, actually, I kind of got pushed into doing what I do. Because when I was growing up in Bahrain, I actually became very very much against, to some extent, or apathetic to what my father was doing. I saw that my father, from 2001 to 2011, would lead this non-violent protest movement. He was creating all of this awareness about what civil disobedience means, and he was training all these youth in Bahrain. And I would see how they would go out to protest, and there'd be 15 or 20 of them, and they'd get beaten up really, really bad. He'd come back home with scars all over his back from the beatings, and nobody cared. And so my question to him was always, why do you do this? It's not worth it. It wasn't until I experienced the revolution myself in 2011 that I became really proud of being Bahraini, that I had a newfound respect for the Bahraini people and what they've been through, because I grew up in Denmark, so I didn't really understand why people didn't want to get involved in politics. But to expand just a little bit further on that, I actually was teaching at Brown University after graduating from university in Bahrain. And when I went back to Bahrain, I was looking for a job, and I couldn't get a job because of my father's work. In Bahrain, when you're a human rights defender, they punish the entire family. And so I started volunteering for the Bahrain Center when Nabila was running it. And so after that, I got threats of getting arrested, so I had to leave the country. And that's how I became a human rights defender. So a lot of times, many of these regimes actually create human rights defenders. They create their own enemies.
What is there? You know, we here here in the West, we see this so far away. We look at it afar, and we see this going on, and you know, we just kind of we see what goes on in Egypt, and then these other countries, and we kind of look at it. We go, how can these people ever resolve this? It just seems so intractable, so unresolvable.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that when people were looking at the civil rights movement here in the United States, they thought just about the same thing. You know, or when there was the movement to end slavery, there were people thinking the same thing of, this is not resolvable. This is a situation that's going to continue for a very, very long time. And I think that these things do take a long time. I think one of the problems that we have right now in the Middle East and North Africa region is everyone wants everything to be rushed and to happen really quickly. And they're saying, well, it's been 3 years. Why don't we have democracies yet? And that's not how it works.
I mean, even in the American Revolution, it took 13 years for the Constitution.
Think, wasn't there slavery in America for 500 years?
Exactly. Yeah, so we're looking at a situation where I believe that the real struggle doesn't actually... it doesn't exist within bringing down the regime. The actual struggle starts after the regime falls and in setting up a new government on the right basis that will respect everyone's human rights and everyone's part in society.
It's called We Are the Giant. I think that's self-explanatory. It's interviews with you, Mariam, your sister, and people like you in other countries. How many countries?
It's in 3 countries. We filmed in Syria, in Libya, and in Bahrain.
You went to Syria?
No, I was on the border of Syria, but I was never inside Syria fully.
Pretty rough.
Yeah, it was a little dangerous. We went in and we were around the border and we popped over and back, but never went in very deeply. And actually, we worked with a relentless cameraman named Fadi Dabbas, who's still stuck inside Daria, and actually worked with him very closely using Skype and giving him camera training sessions and depth of field and focus and framing, and they actually filmed most of it for us and uploaded it. But we also filmed with activists around the border who were smuggling things in and out ourselves.
What do you think?
And Mataz.
What do you think the biggest misconception of the region is to Americans? You know. What do you think our biggest misconception about the place is?
Well, I feel like probably everyone sees it so politicized, but at the end of the day, they're just everyday people standing outside saying, I'm tired of this, stop it. And it's not preordained, it's not based in religion, it's just I want my kids to have a school.
We talked to those guys, those Syrian guys who made a film here at Sundance on Friday, those guys from Homs in Syria.
Yeah.
And they said that city, Homs, where they were from, and I forget the name of the movie, but they said
Return to
Homs. Yeah. And they said Homs was a big, beautiful city, and the Christians lived there, Muslims lived there, and we lived there, and everybody pretty much got along, and it was a nice city. And now it's devastated.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I spent a lot of summers in my childhood in Syria, where I was actually born in Damascus. And I know that Syria is not a society that is sectarian. People lived together, and it was completely fine. You were never asked if you were Muslim or Christian, or if you were Sunni or Shia.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that I think is a misconception, and that we need to again and again remind people of, is that sectarianism is a tool. At the end of the day, what this comes down to is political and economic control. Yeah. Sectarianism is being used as a tool by these regimes because the very first concept of controlling a society is divide and conquer. And so they do what they know best, is trying to divide the society so that they can control it.
Yeah. Sarajevo, where the Olympics were in Sarajevo, a wonderful European-like city, and then they managed to divide it with sectarianism, and Exactly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We Are the Giant is the name of the movie. Director Greg Barker, Razan Galini, the co-producer, and Miriam Al-Kawaja. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys.